Is Breen really dead? One of the many questions asked by a majority of Half-Life fans. A question among hundreds that Valve purposely left for fans to speculate on. Today's theory will focus on the fate of a character from the Half-Life universe. He is known as the former administrator of the Black Mesa Research Facility, the person to negotiate a peace treaty between the human race and the Combine after the 7-Hour War, and the ruler of Earth. He is Wallace Breen. Those of you who played Half-Life 2, you already know that Breen's doom was a result of Gordon Freeman's actions to destroy the Citadel's dark energy fusion reactor that Breen was going to use to escape Earth. He was then seen falling to his death seconds before the reactor resulted in a massive explosion. If you haven't speculated on this before, or you're new to the Half-Life universe, you might be asking yourself, how can one man survive an explosion on this magnitude some 2.5 kilometers high off the ground? In reality, chances of you surviving an explosion like that are next to impossible, unless something else was involved. The only two characters who we know survived this explosion are Alex Vance and Gordon Freeman. There is also Eli Vance and Judith Mossman, but they don't really matter as they succeeded to escape the Citadel in time. The only reason Alex and Gordon survived is all thanks to the Vortigons, who teleported them away while they were frozen in time. With that being said, it means Wallace Breen should be dead. Or is he? There's a twist in the game which gave birth to this entire theory. Near the end of Half-Life 2, when Gordon and Alex escape from the restraints in Breen's office, Breen is seen down a long hallway talking to an advisor on a screen. This is where the twist kicks in.
It's me you should be concerned.
Hey, listen.
I can still deliver.
That's him.
But not without your help. The portal destination is untenable. Surely you can set the relay elsewhere. There's no way I can survive in that environment. A host body? You must be joking. I can't possibly.
There he is.
Oh, all right. Damn it, if that's what it takes. Just hurry. He's right behind me.
There are many things that we can conclude from this, like the fact that Breen is trying to work on a plan B, as plan A, which was to eliminate Eli and Alex, has failed. He decides that the best way to escape from Gordon and Alex is by leaving Earth. To do that, he seeks the help from an advisor who isn't heard speaking, but rather it communicates telepathically with Breen. What we don't know is what the advisor told Breen while they were having their conversation, but we can only assume based on Breen's responses. Presumably, the advisor told Breen where he would be taken, after which Breen responded with,
The portal destination is untenable. Surely you can set the relay elsewhere. There's no way I can survive in that environment.
Supposedly, at that point, the advisor suggested an alternative. A host body, through which Breen would be transferred to in order to survive in the environment of that specific location. At first, Breen is alarmed by this idea as he is heard saying,
"The host body, you must be joking. I can't possibly..."
but quickly changes his mind and decides to agree with the proposal.
Oh, all right, damn it, if that's what it takes. Just hurry, he's right behind me.
But what is this host body? The answer to that is an advisor. It's quite obvious because it can't be anything else other than an advisor because 1. Advisors are the most powerful beings and masterminds behind the Combine's occupation of Earth. And 2. If Breen's human body cannot survive in that location, then that must mean that advisors are capable of surviving there. Now that we know what Breen's plan B was, it brings us to the next question. If Breen died, then how was he transferred to the host body? Well, his physical body was gone, but his conscience remained. This means that his conscience was preserved and then uploaded into the new host body through an unknown process. Coincidentally, it appears to be the same process through which Caroline, a character from Portal 2, was transferred into a host body who we know to be GLaDOS. She was strapped to the surgical table, possibly against her own will, and then the surgeons and engineers commenced the transfer procedure. A similarity like this is definitely something that Valve wanted its fans to discover. Let's move on to Half-Life 2 Episode 1, in the scene where Gordon and Alex meet an advisor face to face for the first time. Many people believe that this advisor is Breen in his new host body, and they believe that because of how the pod was brought into the room a few seconds after an old recording of Breen randomly came up on the screen, followed by video feed of an advisor.
What the hell?
Others think that those events were just coincidental, that occurred due to perfect timing between the playback of the old recording and the arrival of the advisor pod shortly after. There is, however, a little secret that some players have found, pushing them to believe that this is the same advisor pod that's later found in Half-Life 2 Episode 2. Closely here, you can clearly see an inscription on the left side of the pod reading 314 URB-LOC0017. Then, if you look at the crashed advisor pod in Episode 2, you can see the same inscription on the side of the pod. It's quite hard to spot it, but it is there. Now, when it comes to translating this inscription, the URB-LOC0017 undoubtedly translates to Urban Location City 17. But the real challenge lies mostly with the number 314, as it can have several different meanings according to some users. Number 1. 314 is said to be the number belonging to this advisor, meaning that this is the 314th advisor out there. However, the string could be a serial number for the advisor carrier and not the actual advisor. Number 2. 314 specifies that Earth is the 314th planet that the Combine has conquered. Keep in mind that the number of planets conquered by the Combine has never been revealed in the games. However, there is a small secret that slightly correlates with this. This secret is found in the last chapter of Half-Life 2, Dark Energy. If you use the no-clip command, you can get to this room right here, where you will see an advisor. The purpose of this room, along with the advisor, is for a scripted sequence that triggers the scene involving Breen's conversation with the advisor on the screen. Now to the right is where the secret lies. This appears to be some sort of interface, mostly showing mugshots of an advisor. But if you look closely here, you can see that this interface displays our own solar system. Precisely our solar system after the Combine's invasion at that point in time. This area over here appears to be like a mapping grid, perhaps of the entire solar system, including other planets in the vicinity. What we assume this to be our own solar system, it truly bears the resemblance of it. From looking at this, we can make out that this is the Sun. These three other objects appear to be planet Venus, Earth, and Mars, with no sign of Mercury before them. The last object is Jupiter, as Jupiter is the first giant planet that comes after Mars. But what about Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Mercury? Those are not displayed on the interface, meaning that it was possible the Combine consumed these planets by draining them of their resources, similar to what they're doing to Earth. Regrettably, further analysis is very limited due to the poor quality of this image. So the final conclusion is that if this is how our solar system looked back at that point in time, it probably means that the Combine has claimed those 5 missing planets, making Earth the 314th planet they've claimed. Let's return to studying the possibility of this advisor pod being the same one found in episode 2. A lot of people believe it is because of that inscription. But after looking at the several meanings of the number 314, the real answer is that there's a 50-50 chance of this being the same advisor pod. If 314 signifies that this is the 314th advisor, then it's true that this pod is the same as this pod with the same advisor. However, if 314 signifies something else, like the fact that Earth is the 314th planet conquered by the Combine, then this whole thing is false, and those are just 2 different pods. Additionally, I did some digging around the texture files for the advisor pod and found that the body texture sheet has this on it. The same inscription that we just discussed about, meaning that all the advisor pod models in the games all used the same texture sheet. I also discovered that these are the only 2 instances where the player can see an advisor pod up close. Because of that, players would be able to clearly see this inscription on the left side of the pods. But as for the rest of the scenes in the games where advisor pods are involved, they're all shown at a greater distance and at such an angle in order to make it impossible for the player to spot this inscription. So then I asked myself, why didn't Valve make it easy and create a separate texture sheet with the inscription for the advisor pod seen up close and a separate texture sheet for the other advisor pod models? It's quite a rhetorical question, but later I figured that if Valve's intentions were to show players that this pod is the same as this pod, then they wouldn't make 2 separate texture sheets in fears that some players who might root through the game files could discover the 2 different texture sheets, ultimately meaning that it would be way too easy to figure out that this pod is the same as this pod. In Half-Life 2 Episode 2 is where I found some solid evidence that Breen might be an advisor, and it's completely changed the way I looked at this whole theory. Let's take a look at the barn scene in Episode 2 when Gordon and Alex are immobilized by the hatched advisor.
Whoa!
Let's play this clip again. We can see that the advisor starts off by levitating a barrel, then crushing it. But why would the advisor choose to look at a barrel and examine it with its tongue? Well, I thought more about this, and I came up with a possible explanation. Baby steps. Think back. As a baby, you were taught how to do basic things, like walking or riding a bike. Let's try and think about this outside of the box. We know that Breen was born human, in flesh and blood, and as a baby, he learned about his abilities as a human being. Things like walking, picking up an object and moving it around, throwing it, and the list goes on. Now, we already know that Breen agreed to be transferred into a host body. Assuming that this process worked successfully means only one thing. He is reborn. And if he is reborn into a new body, he will need to familiarize himself with the functions of his new body. And that's why I think he picked up that random barrel, because he needed to familiarize himself with his new abilities. The same goes with the dead body. There's more. After analyzing the same scene over and over, looking for clues, I found something that a lot of players missed out on. Let's pause here. Before I play it any further, I want you to watch it yourself first and see if you can spot the factor that strengthens this whole theory even more. If you didn't find anything out of the ordinary, I don't blame you, because I didn't either, until now. Let's play this clip again. This time pay attention to the advisor's body language. Notice that after the advisor throws away the dead body, it looks over at Gordon and doesn't take its eyes off of him. It's as if it was shocked to see Gordon still alive after two huge explosions, hence the long stare. One explosion being at the pinnacle of the Citadel, and the other one occurring as Gordon and Alex were on the train out of City 17. Now, do you see here that as the advisor is glaring at Gordon, a small explosion occurs here, but the advisor completely ignores that like it was nothing and continues to stare at Gordon. So you might ask, how is any of this relevant at all? Well, let's assume that this advisor is Breen. Now try and put yourself in his shoes. If you were a powerful leader and a man with a crowbar succeeded to defeat your forces that failed to apprehend him, that would infuriate you. Then, this man becomes your arch-nemesis and succeeds in destroying your plan to escape Earth, after which you die by his hand. Now, if you were brought back to life in a brand new host body and saw the same man again after thinking that he should have been dead a long time ago, it would really shock you. And as you have him in your grasp, all you think about is vengeance. So now try to link what I just said to the way the advisor glared at Gordon. He hatched out of the pod, familiarized himself with his new abilities, and was then shocked and surprised to see Gordon Freeman. Now it makes sense to assume that this is the new Breen. And the thing is, when it comes to searching for clues and answers to questions like these, It's not always about visual evidence, audio evidence, Easter eggs, or unused content. Sometimes you have to study a certain character or a group of characters, analyze their behavior, their body language, their personality, and the list goes on. Remember, Breen had the option to kill Alex first. There is a reason why he wanted to kill Gordon first, and it's certainly not because Gordon was closer. Because as you can see here, Alex was the one who was actually closer to Breen. So my point is that if this was an ordinary advisor, it would have most likely killed Alex because she'd be the first to be seen.
Gordon Freeman.
At this point in time, it's hard not to believe that Wallace Breen has been reincarnated into a brand new body, in the body of an advisor. The same advisor that Gordon Freeman and Alex Vance had an unfortunate reunion with. The same advisor who may have been responsible for the tragically gruesome death of Eli Vance and was once again unlucky to kill Gordon Freeman. But we can only wait until the next Half-Life game to find out the truth.